Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear brothers and sisters, welcome to our daily tafsir. Tonight, inshallah, is the last night, is the last tafsir session. We thank you all for participating and for attending and for your support. Jazakumullahu khairan. May Allah accept from us and from you, and Eidukum Mubarak, inshallah. So, yesterday we stopped at Surah Al-Hashr. And tonight we're gonna have to go a little bit faster because we have to finish just 29 and 20, just 29 and just 30. So we're just going to go very quickly, just mentioning the main you know, the main points and the main themes of each surah, inshallah. So Surah Al-Hashr is talking about a conquest that the Prophet ﷺ did. It is the Ghazwat Bani Nadir or Ghazwat Khaybar, and when the Prophet ﷺ conquered Khaybar, and Khaybar was a fortress, a Jewish fortress that belonged to the Jews, and it was one of the most secured and one of the most powerful garrisons, and the Prophet ﷺ was able to conquer it with the help from Allah Azza wa Jal, and then the companions such as Ali and others. And Ali radiallahu anhu was remarkable on that day, and he was able to defeat the people, Khaybar's most ferocious warriors such as Harith and Marhab. And also Allah Azza wa Jal speaks about dividing the booty of this conquest, and he calls it victory, and he talks about dividing the spoils of war very in details, very specifically, and how Muslims should behave. And then after that, Allah Azza wa Jal talks about his attributes, and he mentions a number of his attributes in the last ayat of Surah Al-Hashr. And he says, لا يستوي أصحاب النار وأصحاب الجنة أصحاب الجنة هم الفائزون. So there is a difference between the people of Jannah and the people of Jahannam, because the people of Jannah are the most successful ones. And then Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَأَنزَلْنَا هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ عَلَى جَبَلٍ لَرَأَيْتَهُ خَاشِعًا مُتَصَدِّعًا مِنْ خَشْيَةِ اللَّهِ. If you reveal this Qur'an upon a mountain, you would see that the mountain is standing still, and the mountain is in a state of tranquility because of his fear of Allah Azza wa Jal. And this means that this Qur'an is very intense, and this Qur'an it works very it works like you could say it works on objects, subhanallah. Even objects respond to Qur'an. Even objects respond to Qur'an. So this shows that the heart that doesn't respond to Qur'an is a very rigid heart, and it needs curing, and it needs purification. And then Allah Azza wa Jal mentions his attributes, and he mentions a lot of names here. Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, Al-Malik, Al-Quddus, Al-Salam, Al-Mu'min, Al-Muhaymin, Al-Aziz, Al-Jabbar, Al-Mutakabbir, Al-Khaliq, Al-Bari, Al-Musawwir. And then he says, Lahu Al-Asma' Al-Husna. To him belong the most beautiful names, and to him belong what lies in the heavens and the earth. And with this, Allah Azza wa Jal finishes Surah Al-Hashr. Surah Al-Mumtahina also is about the relationship between the Muslims and the disbelievers, and how Muslims shouldn't be friendly with the people who wage war against Allah Azza wa Jal, because there is a difference between a dhimmi and muharib. The dhimmi is the person who lives with the Muslims peacefully. Yeah, he lives with the Muslims peacefully, and he doesn't fight with the Muslims. He just lives amongst them, and he is protected. And hurting that person, hurting a dhimmi, a person who has a dhimma. A dhimma means protection, and you could say a deal with the Muslims. Whoever hurts this person, Prophet ﷺ said, he is my enemy in the Day of Judgment. Whoever hurts a dhimmi, is my enemy on the day of judgment. But Allah Azza wa Jal in Surah Al-Mumtahana is talking about the people who fight Allah Azza wa Jal, the people who arrest, who attempt to arrest the progress of Islam, the people who stand in the way of the progress of the da'wah. So in this, in the beginning of the ayah, Allah Azza wa Jal says, يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تتولوا قوما غضب الله لا تتولوا لا تتخذوا عدوي وعدوكم أولياء. Do not take my enemies and your enemies أولياء, meaning friends. Yeah, friends. تلقون إليهم بالمودة. You deal with them in a friendly way, and Allah Azza wa Jal doesn't like that. So Allah Azza wa Jal is talking specifically about al-muharib. So there is a difference between al-dhimmi and al-muharib, as I mentioned. Al-muharib is the one who fights, the one who is hostile. And then Allah Azza wa Jal mentions also about how the Muslims should deal with their relatives amongst the disbelievers. And also Allah Azza wa Jal mentions the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, and he is an example in this regard, because his father was a senior, was a leader in his tribe, and he was the one in charge of the idols or something like that, or the one in charge of the temple or something like that. So Ibrahim alayhi salam said that I disassociate myself from you and whatever you worship. Yeah, and whatever you worship. And then at the end of the surah, Allah Azza wa Jal talks about the Muslim women, and when they come to give allegiance to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and embrace Islam, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam does imtihan for them, does a test for them, and this test is them given a promise or given a covenant, given a covenant that they won't commit any zina, and they also won't lie about what Allah Azza wa Jal created in their wombs. So there is a covenant that the Muslim women should take when they embrace Islam. Then after Surah Al-Mumtahina, there is Surah Al-Saf, and Surah Al-Saf starts off with Tasbih, with Sabbaha Lillahi, as Surah Al-Jumu'ah and Surah Al-Hadid and Surah Al-Hashr and so many surahs. They call them the Sabbaha or Yusabbihu Surah. So Allah Azza wa Jal mentions the story of Musa alayhi salam, and how the people of Banu Israel, they tried to hurt Musa alayhi salam, and Allah Azza wa Jal exonerated him and declared his innocence. Then Allah Azza wa Jal mentions Isa alayhi salam here, and he mentions that Isa alayhi salam came with the message of Islam, basically, and how his people said that this is magic, and whatever you're doing is not a miracle, it is magic. Yeah. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the people who do jihad for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal, and give charity for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal, and he promises them Jannah. And then he finishes the surah also by Isa, talking about Isa alayhi salam, and when he asked his Hawariyin, his disciples, who are my supporters in this world, then the Hawariyun said, we are your supporters. And then Allah Azza wa Jal, and then Isa alayhi salam took a covenant from his disciples, and then Allah Azza wa Jal says that فَأَيَّدْنَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا عَلَىٰ عَدُوِّهِمْ فَأَصْبَحُوا ظَاهِرِينَ, and we supported and helped the ones who believed in Isa alayhi salam, and they emerged victorious. The next surah is Surah Al-Jumu'ah, and Surah Al-Jumu'ah is revealed. Surah Al-Jumu'ah is talking about the people of Banu Israel and how they have knowledge. They have knowledge, and this knowledge is not benefiting them. That's why in Surah Al-Fatiha we say غير المغضوب عليهم, the ones who earned your anger, and they earned Allah Azza wa Jal, Allah's anger, because they know the truth but they don't follow it. unlike the misguided. So there is the ضالون, and these are the Christians, and there is al-maghdub alayhim, the ones who earned the wrath of Allah Azza wa Jal, and the Nasara, the Christians, they are al-ضالون. Allah called them al-ضالون, the misguided, because they don't have the knowledge. They don't have the knowledge. They're just practicing. And the Jews, they have the knowledge, but they're not practicing it and they're not implementing it. That's why Allah Azza wa Jal said that مثل الذين حملوا التوراة ثم لم يحملوها كمثل الحمار يحمل أسفارا. They are like the donkey when a donkey carries tons of books. So imagine a donkey carrying tons of books, and of course those books will not benefit the donkey because the donkey doesn't understand them and does not read them. And the last ayat of Surah Al-Jumu'ah, Allah Azza wa Jal talks about Salat Al-Jumu'ah, and this ayah was revealed when the Prophet ﷺ was praying Jumu'ah, and then a caravan came, and some people left the prayer and went after the caravan. Only 12 people stayed with the Prophet ﷺ. That's why Allah Azza wa Jal is saying, وَذَرُوا الْبَيْعِ, do not do any transactions during Jumu'ah. And this is something that really makes me, something that I have noticed in this country, that people are taking this a little bit lightly. So during Jumu'ah, I've noticed that people are just buying things and selling things, and Allah Azza wa Jal made it forbidden that we do any transactions or do any business during Jumu'ah. And then Allah Azza wa Jal says, after Jumu'ah and after the prayer, انتشروا في الأرض, spread and ابتغوا من فضل الله, and seek the pleasure or seek the rizq of your Lord. And then after Surah Al-Jumu'ah, there is Surah Al-Munafiqun, the hypocrites. And this surah was revealed specifically and especially for the hypocrites and their plots. So this surah basically exposed Al-Munafiqeen. Allah Azza wa Jal made all their plots known to the Muslims, and starting with the one who said, when Muhammad comes back from the battlefield, we will kick him out from Medina. And that is Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul, and he was the head of Munafiqeen. And also Allah Azza wa Jal says to the Prophet ﷺ, when you look at them, you like their shapes, you like their bodies, because they look strong and they look beautiful. But that is just a hollow body. It doesn't have any spirituality, and it doesn't have any belief in it. That's why, and then he says, Allah Azza wa Jal likened them to wood. He said they look like pillars of wood. Yeah, they look like pillars of wood. And that's why the scholars say, if you see wood in your dream, then there is something about hypocrisy. There's something in your heart about there's something in your heart. There's some hypocrisy in your heart, or some hypocrisy in someone, that it depends on the dream that you see. So wood involves hypocrisy in a dream. That's why Allah Azza wa Jal, so in this surah Allah Azza wa Jal says, they look like wooden pillars, because they look very, very strong and very tall. Yeah. So also Allah Azza wa Jal says, subhanAllah, Allah Azza wa Jal here exposed even their secret meetings. And when they said, we are the strong ones, and we are the honorable ones, and the Prophet is just a man who is petty. He is a man who is weak, and when he comes back, we will just kick him out because we're stronger than him. Then Allah Azza wa Jal answers them and says, وَلِلَّهِ الْعِزَّةُ, and honor and power belongs to Allah and the Prophet and the believers. But Munafiqeen do not know that. And then subhanAllah, the ayah, the surah ends with how the Munafiqeen die and what will happen to them when they die. He said, أنفقوا مما رزقناكم من قبل أن يأتي أحدكم الموت. Spend in the way of your Lord before death comes to you. And when death comes to you, and when death comes to them, or some of you will say, oh Allah, bring me back to life. Yeah, bring me back to life just for a short while, so I can spend in your way, and I can be amongst the righteous ones. But Allah Azza wa Jal says, and then said, وَلَنْ يُؤَخِّرَ اللَّهُ نَفْسًا إِذَا جَاءَ أَجَلُهَا. The ajal, the hour of death, cannot be delayed And Allah Azza wa Jal is the all-knowing of what you are doing and of what you are practicing. Also, Surah Al-Taghabun is the surah after Surah Al-Munafiqun, and this surah also describes the Day of Judgment, and Allah Azza wa Jal calls it Yawm Al-Taghabun. Yeah, Yawm Al-Taghabun is coming from Ghaban, and Ghaban is hardship. Yeah, is hardship. It's when someone is suffering from harm and hardship, they would say Maghbunun. And Yawm Al-Taghabun is when everyone, all the creation are suffering from the hardship. And in the land of resurrection, all the creation will be gathered until the Prophet ﷺ does his first shafa'ah, which is speeding up the Day of Judgment and speeding up the judgment from Allah Azza wa Jal. So Allah Azza wa Jal describing the Day of Judgment here in this surah, and then at the end of this surah, He says, إِنَّمَا أَمْوَالُكُمْ وَأَوْلَادُكُمْ فِتْنَةٌ وَعِنْدَ اللَّهِ وَاللَّهُ عِنْدَهُ أَجْرٌ عَظِيمٌ, meaning that your money and your children are fitna, meaning they can distract you from worshipping Allah Azza wa Jal, and they can stand in the way of you getting closer to Allah Azza wa Jal. So Allah Azza wa Jal is encouraging us to not be mesmerized by this life, by the money and by the children and by all the beauty and the glam of this life, and to use that to get closer to Allah Azza wa Jal. And then this is how Allah Azza wa Jal finishes this surah. Then after this surah, Surah Al-Talaq. Surah Al-Talaq is all about divorce. And in this surah, of course, it is a Madani surah, and Madani surahs, they all deal with rulings and establishing Sharia law and everything. So in this surah, Surah Al-Talaq, Allah Azza wa Jal talks about the rulings of talaq and the rulings of divorce, such as iddah, the waiting period, such as the manner of doing the divorce, and it's talking about the women who reach the menopause, and when they there's different ruling between the woman who hasn't reached menopause and the woman who reaches the menopause. There are so many rulings about divorce and about women, and how men should divorce women, and how women should deal with this divorce. Yeah, and then Allah Azza wa Jal ends the surah by talking about the Prophet ﷺ and how he came with the book that has the explanation of everything. And subhanallah, and if you follow this book, we will be amongst the successful ones, and we will be out of darkness. Yeah, and we will be out of darkness. Then after Surah Al-Talaq, there is Surah Al-Tahrim, and Surah Al-Tahrim also is a surah which was revealed in Medina, and it has a cause. And the cause for this surah was an incident that happened to the Prophet ﷺ. It was Hafsa and Aisha radiallahu anhuma. They wanted the Prophet ﷺ to spend more time with them because he used to go and spend some time in the house of Zainab. It's just all this incident is basically women being jealous of each other, which is a natural thing. So they wanted the Prophet ﷺ to spend more time with them. So they said, when the Prophet so they said to him, when he came to them to their houses, they said to him, "Oh, you smell like mughafir," and mughafir is something that doesn't have a good smell. And they said, "Oh, because of Zainab, you smell like that." So the Prophet ﷺ said, "I will never go to Zainab again, or I will never sleep with Zainab again." So Allah Azza wa Jalla is you could say that blaming the Prophet ﷺ a little bit, saying that why do you make something permissible forbidden for you? Allah made it permissible for you to marry this wife and to spend time with her. So why would you make it haram and forbidden for yourself? And Allah Azza wa Jal also advised and admonished Hafsa and Aisha radiallahu anhuma, and he said to them that if you choose to stay with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and you have to repent to Allah Azza wa Jal, and you couldn't do such a thing. And of course they apologized and they repented to Allah Azza wa Jal. then Allah Azza wa Jal mentions this surah advising, in the process of advising the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, he mentions three women here. He mentioned he mentioned two women here, two good women and two bad women. He mentioned two good women, which are the wife of Fir'aun, Asya alayhi salam, good women, the wife of Fir'aun, Asya alayhi salam, and Maryam alayhi salam. And also on the other hand, he mentions the wife of Nuh and the wife of Lut. So this is an advice to the wives of the Prophet ﷺ to be like Maryam and to be like Asya, and to not be like the wife of Lut and the wife of Nuh, which and those women, they betrayed their husbands, and Allah Azza wa Jal punished them with the disbelievers. Then after Surah Al-Talaq, this is Surah Al-Mulk, and basically this is just 29. And Surah Al-Mulk is such an amazing surah. The Prophet ﷺ said that this surah has an intercession, has a shafa'ah, and if you recite it a lot, especially before you sleep, it will get you to Jannah. And he said that this surah interceded for a man, and it got him to Jannah. So this surah is talking about the blessings that Allah Azza wa Jal gave us in this life. There are so many blessings that Allah Azza wa Jal gave us. And also Allah Azza wa Jal is talking about the Day of Judgment, and how the people and how the disbelievers will go into Jahannam, and they will go to As-Sa'ir, and how they will regret this, and how the angels will ask them, and they say to them, the prophets came to you, and Allah Azza wa Jal sent you messengers, but you did not believe in them. And then they will feel deep remorse, and subhanallah, it is very, very very scary. And then Allah Azza wa Jal in Surah Al-Mulk talks about the possibility of Allah Azza wa Jal punishing His servants, punishing His servants, and how He could send trials and tribulations, and how we should fear Allah Azza wa Jal, and know that He is watching us. In this ayah, He says, أَمِنْتُمْ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاءِ يُرْسِلْ عَلَيْكُمْ حَاصِبًا فَسَتَعْلَمُونَ كَيْفَ نَذِيرٌ. Do you feel safe from Allah that Allah Azza wa Jal won't send to you a storm that will eradicate you? Do you feel safe that Allah Azza wa Jal will not punish you? So this is Allah Azza wa Jal is reminding us that we should know that He is watching us. And then at the end of this surah, Allah Azza wa Jal talks about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and his reasoning with the disbelievers. He's saying, Allah Azza wa Jal is saying, قُلْ أَرَأَيْتُمْ إِنْ أَهْلَكَنِيَ اللَّهُ. You see, if Allah Azza wa Jal would kill me and finish me and all my companions, so who will protect you from the punishment of Allah? So meaning that the Prophet, there is no protection from the punishment of Allah Azza wa Jalla except through the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And even if the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam does not exist, Allah Azza wa Jalla will still punish the disbelievers for their disbelief. Then after that, Surah Al-Qalam, and Surah Al-Qalam starts with Noon, which is a disjointed letter. وَالْقَلَمِ وَمَا يَسْطُرُونَ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes an oath with the pen, and the pen that Allah Azza wa Jalla is talking about is the pen that He first created. وَمَا يَسْطُرُونَ, and what they write. And He's also taken an oath by the things that the angels write, their predestination, and whatever the angels are writing, matters that will happen, and matters that happened, and all the predestination and all the qadr of Allah Azza wa Jal. Then Allah Azza wa Jal encourages the Prophet ﷺ to not follow anyone amongst the disbelievers, especially those who do gossip, and those who mock people. And He's talking here about a specific person, and He calls him Hammazin Masha'in bin Amim, and He will say that we will mark him on the nostrils and he will be known to everyone on the Day of Judgment because of his sins. Then Allah Azza wa Jal gives the example of the people of the garden, and when they didn't, when they were stingy and didn't want to give anything to the poor, and then Allah Azza wa Jal punished them by destroying their garden. Surah Al-Haqqa also is a surah that talks about the Day of Judgment, and Haqqa is one of the names of the Day of Judgment. Allah Azza wa Jal mentions how the sky will open and how the angels will descend, and how Allah Azza wa Jal will come to judge between people, and how the disbelievers will feel deep remorse when they saw their books, and when they received their books and hold them with their left hand. Surah Al-Ma'arij also is a surah that talks about the akhlaq and the akhlaq of the disbelievers, and how they are stingy, and how they don't spend in the way of Allah Azza wa Jalla. And on the other hand, the believers and their akhlaq, and how they pray on time, and they spend in the way of Allah Azza wa Jalla, and they believe in the Day of Judgment, and they fear the Day of Judgment, and fear the punishment of Allah Azza wa Jal. Then Allah Azza wa Jal talks about their reward in the Day of Judgment, which is Jannah, and also talks about the disbelievers and their punishments in hellfire. Surah Nuh is the next surah, and Surah Nuh talks about how Nuh alayhi salam struggled with his people, and how they did not listen to him, and he stayed with them for almost 1,000 years, and they did not listen to him, and he tried all ways. He tried to advise them secretly. He tried to advise them openly, but they did not believe. And because when Nuh alayhi salam knew that his people won't respond to his message, he made dua, and he made dua for Allah Azza wa Jal to save him and his people, and Allah Azza wa Jal granted him the ark, and Allah Azza wa Jal saved him and destroyed the disbelievers. Then Surah Al-Jinn is all about the jinns of Nasibin, and when they believed in the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and Allah Azza wa Jal is you could say transmitting their conversation with each other, their conversations with each other regarding the book of Allah Azza wa Jal, and regarding Iman and belief, and regarding the message of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and the things that changed when the message of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam came, such as they used to go up in the sky and listen to the angels, but when the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam came, whoever goes up will be sent down by a shooting star. Then after that, Surah Al-Muzammil. And Surah Al-Muzammil is a Makki surah, which was revealed in the beginning of the. Now we're going through the Makki surahs, and Juz Amma, the last Juz, is all about belief, and all of it is Makki, and the Makki surahs are, they're all established belief, and their ayat are small but huge in meaning. Surah Al-Muzammil is when the Prophet ﷺ went back to Khadija, terrified when he met Jibreel in the cave, and then he said to her, Zammiluni, Zammiluni, cover me, or wrap me up. And Allah Azza wa Jalla revealed this ayat to him to strengthen his heart, and to show him and his companions how to pray to Allah Azza wa Jalla at night. Surah Al-Muddathir also is a Makki surah, and also the Prophet ﷺ, when he saw Jibreel sitting on a chair between the heavens and earth, he also felt so scared and went to his wife and said, Dathiruni, Dathiruni, which means also wrap me up. And Allah Azza wa Jalla called him Ya Ayyuhal Muddathir, and he gave him 5 guidelines that he needs to follow as a new prophet, such as purify your clothes, purify your soul, glorify your Lord, and be patient, and do not feel any arrogance, and do not feel any pride that you are a prophet. وَلَا تَمْنُنْ تَسْتَكْثِرْ. Do not have arrogance or pride, because you are a prophet. Then Allah Azza wa Jalla mentions Al-Walid ibn al-Mughira, and how he wanted to in his plot to mock the Qur'an, and his plot to demean the Qur'an, and he says that he was confused whether to say this is magic, this is poetry, and then he said this is just the word of the word of this is just the word of the speech of a human, and Allah Azza wa Jal says that He will punish him amongst other disbelievers. And then Surah Al-Qiyamah. Surah Al-Qiyamah also is talking about the Day of Judgment, and of course Al-Qiyamah means the Day of Judgment, and Allah Azza wa Jal describes the Day of Judgment, and also describes how transition between this life and the next life. In the last ayah, He says that no soul will be left unjudged, and no soul will be just left alone, and all souls will be judged in the Day of Judgment. Surah Al-Insan also is a surah that talks about the Day of Judgment, and talks about Jannah, and describes Jannah, and how the people, and what people of Jannah drink, and what the people of Jannah wear, and how they sit and everything. Surah Al-Mursalat is also starts off with talking about Allah Azza wa Jalla taking an oath with the angels, and then it is a Makki surah that establishes belief and talks about the Day of Judgment and the promise of Allah Azza wa Jalla to the believers and the disbelievers. Then this is the last juz'ah, and which is the juz' Amma, and it starts off with Surah Al-Naba. And all juz' Amma is a Makki juz'ah, and all the surahs are talking about belief, the Day of Judgment, and basically they're establishing the pillars of Iman, like Surah Al-Naba here, Allah starting off with mentioning his blessings that He gave us. We gave you earth, we gave you the mountains, and we gave you everything. Then He mentions the Day of Judgment, and how Allah Azza wa Jal will judge and take everyone accountable, and judge people based on their deeds. Surah Al-Nazi'at also is a surah, is a Makki surah that starts off by Allah Azza wa Jal taking an oath with the angels, and then also talking about the Day of Judgment, and warning us about the Day of Judgment, and talking about the Musa alayhi salam, and talking about Fir'aun, and how Musa alayhi salam brought the signs for him, but he did not believe. Then after that, Allah Azza wa Jal comes back to the Day of Judgment, and states the categories of people. So there's the good people who will be in Jannah, who will be in Jannah because they fought their desires, they were not left to their own devices. And the people of disbelievers, and they just, because they followed their desires and they followed their forefathers blindly, they will be in Jahannam. Surah Abasa is about the Prophet ﷺ when he frowned at Ibn Maktoum. So Allah Azza wa Jal blamed the Prophet ﷺ because he frowned at a man who came to embrace Islam. And he says, Abasa wa tawalla, he frowned and turned away when the blind man came to him. And how would you know that the man came to you to embrace Islam? And the Prophet ﷺ was busy with other people who have potential, people who can support Islam. But Allah Azza wa Jal always wants the Prophet ﷺ to never neglect the weak and the poor. Then after that, Allah Azza wa Jal reminds us of blessings that He gave us, such as rain, such as fruit and everything. And then it goes back to the Day of Judgment and the categories of the faces in the Day of Judgment, that they will be bright and happy faces, and then they will be gloomy and black faces in the Day of Judgment. Then Surah Al-Takwir, and Surah Al-Takwir is describing the Day of Judgment in a mortifying details. It's about the sun, when the sun will come closer, and the sun will be wrapped up and come closer to us. And then when the stars fall, and when the mountains crumble, and all these signs of all these events that will happen at the Day of Judgment. And then Allah Azza wa Jal talks about the Prophet ﷺ and how the disbelievers should believe in the Prophet ﷺ because he came with the truth. And Allah Azza wa Jal revealed this Qur'an as a remembrance to humans. Then after that, Surah Al-Infitar is similar to Surah Al-Takwir. It talks also about the Day of Judgment, and it describes the Day of Judgment, and also describes and also talks to us, to humans, and how can humans disbelieve in the one who created them, and the one who created them in the best shape, the one who created them in the most beautiful shape. Yeah. And then Allah Azza wa Jal says that in the day of judgment, no one will have anything, no wealth, no nothing, and Allah Azza wa Jal will have everything in the day of judgment. Surah Al-Mutaffifin is talking about the people who cheat in weight, and there is a the physical meaning to this, and there is you could say Allah Azza wa Jalla is talking about the people who do transactions and they use weights and measures and everything, but they cheat, and also talking about the people who are not fair to other people. Then Allah Azza wa Jalla talks about the disbelievers and how Allah Azza wa Jalla will block them, and how Allah Azza wa Jalla will and they will be turned away and driven away from Allah Azza wa Jalla, and they will not see Allah Azza wa Jalla because of their disbelief. Then he describes Jannah, and how the people of Jannah will have so many pleasures, such as drinks and couches and everything, and subhanallah, and how the disbelievers used to laugh at them, but in the day of judgment the Muslims and the believers will laugh at the disbelievers. Surah Al-Inshiqaq also is a similar surah to At-Takwir, Al-Infitar. It describes details of the day of judgment, and how the sky will crack, and the earth will tremble and everything. And then Allah Azza wa Jal also talks about the categories of people in the day of judgment. Yeah, Surah Al-Buruj is also talking about the story of the people of Al-Ukhdud, and the story of the sorcerer and the young man who believed in Allah, and that king who forced people to jump into the trench, which was he built the trench and built fire in that trench, and then threw people because they believed in Allah Azza wa Jal, along with the ghulam, with the young man. And this story is well known. Surah At-Tariq also is talking about the day of judgment, and how Allah Azza wa Jal will expose all secrets in the day of judgment, and no one will have any power in the day of judgment, and all power will belong to Allah Azza wa Jal. Surah Al-A'la is talking about the message of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and encouraging the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to remind people, and telling the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that the people who will respond to your message are the people who fear Allah, and the people who have a good natural disposition. Then Surah Al-Ghashiyah also is talking about the day of judgment, describing the day of judgment, and how some faces will look very tired, and they will look in a very bad, they will look like they're very tired and exhausted, and they have done so many things, but so many deeds, but those deeds are not accepted. And on the other hand, some faces will be very bright and very happy. And then Allah Azza wa Jal describes Jannah and its carpets and its divans and so many things, amazing things in Jannah. And then Allah Azza wa Jal encourages us to look at the signs, in the sky, even in the camels, in the mountains. And then he tells the Prophet ﷺ that he is not a musaytar, and he cannot force people, and he cannot coerce people to believe in him, but he is just a messenger who reminds people and warns them. The next surah is Surah Al-Fajr. Surah Al-Fajr also is talking about the ancient nations such as Thamud and Ad and Fir'aun, and what happened to them, and also the nature of man, and the man is in nature of our nature, basically, because we are ungrateful to Allah Azza wa Jalla, and when hardship happens to us, we think that Allah Azza wa Jalla humiliates us. We think that Allah Azza wa Jalla is humiliating us, and Allah Azza wa Jalla hates us. Then Allah Azza wa Jalla in the last ayat of this surah talks about Uthman bin Mad'un, who was the man who died in the battlefield. Surah Al-Balad also talks about the blessings that Allah Azza wa Jal gave us, and what man or what believers should do to break the barrier and become righteous, which such as, things such as giving charity, and taking care of the poor, and advising each other with mercy, and advising each other with patience. Surah Al-Shams, this surah is a unique surah because Allah Azza wa Jal took 11 oaths to state that the ones who purify their souls will be the successful ones, and the ones who let their souls be full of shubuhat, let their souls be full of doubts and desires, they will be the losers. Subhanallah. So this is an amazing categorization, because Allah Azza wa Jal here is saying that the success lies in the purification of the heart. Surah Al-Layl also is talking about the two categories: the ones who give and fear Allah Azza wa Jal, and the ones who hold and don't give in the way of Allah, and istaghna, meaning that they feel self-sufficient and think that they are more powerful than Allah Azza wa Jal. And then he mentions Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, and that he gave all his money for the sake of Allah, just for the sake of Allah, and Allah will please him in the day of judgment. Surah Al-Duha also is a surah about the interruption of wahi, and when the people of Quraysh said that the Prophet, that Muhammad's Lord has neglected him, Allah Azza wa Jal revealed this surah, reminding the Prophet ﷺ that we haven't neglected you. We found you poor and we made you rich. We found you an orphan and we gave you a family. How can we neglect you? So when you do not be do not turn the poor and the beggar away, and be good to orphans, and talk about the blessings of your Lord. Surah Al-Sharh is about the Prophet ﷺ and how Allah Azza wa Jal prepared him for prophethood, and how he widened his chest to accept the truth, and to carry such a huge mission, which is the mission of Islam. Surah At-Teen was Zaytun. Surah At-Teen is a surah that starts off with talking about three cities. At-Teen was Zaytun, basically figs and olives, and these two trees existed in Jerusalem, and Jerusalem is very famous by its figs and olives. Wa Tur Sinin is also a location in which Allah Azza wa Jal spoke to Musa alayhi salam. وهذا البلد الأمين is Mecca. So Allah Azza wa Jal is talking about Jerusalem, Tur Sinin, Tur Sinai, and Mecca. So these are the three locations that Allah Azza wa Jal is talking about in Surah At-Teen, and he's talking about the people who are not talking about humans, and how the end of humans is very weak and petty, but the ones who believe in Allah Azza wa Jal and do good deeds will be the successful ones, and will have another life in the day of judgment. Surah Al-Alaq is the first surah that was revealed, or the first ayat of this surah were the first ayah revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Such an amazing surah that everyone knows and everyone studies. And the rest of the ayahs are talking about Ibn Abu Jahl, who said, if I see Muhammad praying again, I will step on his neck. Then Allah Azza wa Jal turned him away by the angels. When he went near the Prophet ﷺ, he saw angels, and he was mortified, and he escaped. Surah Al-Qadr is talking about Laylatul Qadr, and how Allah Azza wa Jal revealed Qur'an in Laylatul Qadr. And Laylatul Qadr, unfortunately, has passed already, because tonight is the night of the 30th day. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to accept from us if we basically hit Laylatul Qadr. Surah Al-Bayyinah also is talking about the Ahlul Kitab, the people of the book, and what is wrong with the people of the book, and how were they divided? Because they were divided because they did not follow the knowledge that came to them. And also Allah talks about the two categories of people: the people who follow the knowledge and of the prophets, follow ilm, and the people who don't follow ilm. Surah Al-Zalzala is talking about the earthquake that will happen in the day of judgment. And then Surah Al-Adiyat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taking an oath with the war horses and describes how they fight in the battlefield. And then he says that man, subhanAllah, in these surahs, Allah is talking more about the nature of humans. And he says that people are ungrateful to their Lord, and Allah Azza wa Jalla is witness to that. And we, وَإِنَّهُ لِحُبِّ الْخَيْرِ لَشَدِيدٌ, that we love money and we love good things and pleasures. Surah Al-Qari'ah also, we're talking about the Day of Judgment, and also talking about the two categories: the ones who will have their scale heavy, and the ones who will have their scale light. Surah Al-Takathur also is talking about the nature of humans. SubhanAllah, these surahs are talking about the nature of humans and how we are so busy with takathur. Meaning takathur is, having children and just piling up things and collecting things and just not having enough of this worldly life. And Allah Azza wa Jalla is reminding us that we will see the hellfire, and we will see the grave, and we have to remember these two things, because these two things reminds us of the day of judgment. Then Allah Azza wa Jalla, then Surah Al-Asr, and Imam Shafi'i radiallahu anhu said that this surah, if Allah Azza wa Jalla revealed only this surah, it would have been sufficient for humans, because it has the four elements of salvations. The first element is iman, belief. Second element is doing good deeds. The third element is advising each other with the truth, and the fourth element is advising each other with patience. So these are the four elements. So basically, it is iman, doing good deeds, da'wah, and patience. So without these four elements, we are at loss. Indeed, man is in loss. Surah Al-Humazah is talking about the people who mock and make fun of people. And these akhlaq are the akhlaq of the people who gather money, and they're so greedy, and they will be in al-hutama. Al-hutama is basically Jahannam because of their bad akhlaq. Of course, it's talking about the disbelievers, but these are the akhlaq of the disbelievers, so we shouldn't have them. Yeah. The next surah is Surah Al-Fil. Allah Azza wa Jalla is talking to the Prophet ﷺ and saying to him, didn't you see what your Lord did to the people of the elephants, and how Allah Azza wa Jalla destroyed them, and Abraha, because they wanted to destroy Kaaba? Why? Surah Quraysh is a continuation of Surah Al-Fil. Why? To bring Quraysh together. لِإِيلَافِ Quraysh, to bring them together. And also Allah Azza wa Jalla made their winter journey and summer journey safe. So Allah Azza wa Jalla is saying to the people of Quraysh, we have protected you from the Abraha and the elephants, and we have protected you during your winter journey and summer journey. So you should worship us, and you should worship Allah Azza wa Jalla, the one who protected you. Surah Al-Ma'un is talking also about the people who are stingy, the people who don't give charity to the miskeen, and the musallin, the ones who pray but they neglect their prayers and they skip their prayers. May Allah protect us. Surah Al-Kawthar is the shortest surah in Qur'an, and it's talking about Allah Azza wa Jalla giving the Prophet the river in Jannah, which is called Al-Kawthar, and Allah Azza wa Jalla is saying to the Prophet, sacrifice to your Lord, pray to your Lord and sacrifice to him, and the one who is hostile and your enemy is the one who is cut off, because they said that Mohammed is cut off. They called him cut off because all his baby boys died. So the one who didn't have, because the Arabs at the time, it was they call it a patriarchal society. They said whoever didn't have male children is cut off. So Allah Azza wa Jalla said they are the cut off, and you're not the cut off. Surah Al-Kafirun is also an amazing surah that divides you could say light from darkness, and tells the Prophet ﷺ to disassociate from the disbelievers. Surah Al-Nasr is the surah that was revealed to the Prophet ﷺ to tell him that your time is near, because people are embracing Islam in flocks, and the victory of your Lord came. So repent to your Lord and ask His forgiveness, because your time and your death is near. Surah Al-Masad is about Abu Lahab, the one who said to the Prophet, Tabban laka, may you perish. So Allah Azza wa Jal responded to him and said, may Abu Lahab perish, and may his hand perish as well, and his wife also, because she used to harm the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then Surah Al-Ikhlas, such an amazing surah that describes Allah Azza wa Jal. There was a companion who used to pray with this surah a lot, and when he was asked, he said, I love this surah. Then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to him, Allah loves you because you love this surah. He said, I love this surah because it describes Allah Azza wa Jal. He is Allah, the one, as-Samad, the eternal. Lam yalid wa lam yulad. He never begets. He's never been begotten, and he doesn't have anyone like him. No one is like him, and no one is equivalent to him. Surah Al-Falaq and Surah Al-Nas were revealed to the Prophet ﷺ because he was affected by some black magic. And these two surahs are talking about the evil of people, the evil of creatures basically that Allah created, such as jinns and humans. So in this surah, Allah Azza wa Jalla is talking about magic, and how the people who practice magic, they blow on knots, and how the jinns, when the moon is covered by the clouds, the jinn and the shayateen, they just spread and scatter on earth, and they will harm people. And Surah An-Nas also is talking about shaitan, and how he whispers in the chest of people. And the shaitan is not only jinn, it is also can also be human. So min al-jinnati wan-nas. So shayateen can be jinns and can be humans. Subhanallah. So with this, we conclude all the ajza, inshallah. Please forgive if there is any shortcoming. I know I took more than 30 minutes, way more than 30 minutes, but I really wanted to finish this properly. Alhamdulillah. Jazakumullahu khairan. May Allah Azza wa Jal accept from us and from you. Eid Mubarak. Salamat Hari Raya. Barakallahu feekum. And see you inshallah soon. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.